All right, 2 categories left. Worst movie, best movie. Worst movie, once again, it's kind of a long list. And this has been a rough year. Oh, man. So many. Boss Level. Space Jam 2. Army of the Dead. Reminiscence. Prisoners of Ghostland. Just a bizarre Nicolas Cage movie. Infinite. And I think maybe a surprise, Eternals. Look, there are many on this list that I will advocate for. Boss Level was one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life. Army of the Dead was shocking, I think. But although Army of the Dead, as we discussed, had a scene, at least had an opening scene that was worth watching. What makes the worst movie for the year is not purely technical, right? There are elements of that are technical. Although I don't think it's smart or a good idea to make it a purely technical level of thinking, because frankly there are many movies that get made every year that are very, very poorly made, and it would be very easy to pick a movie that was made for $10,000 or something like that, and just on the technical merits alone, you would say this is one of the worst movies of all time. I mean, there are no shortage of modern day equivalents of The Room or anything Ed Wood made or whatever. Like that kind of stuff is everywhere. What I think makes the worst movie is a movie that is a proper studio produced film. It's something that actually did get a proper cast, proper director, all of the things that you would need to make a good movie. And boy, Army of the Dead, certainly fits this category. Zack Snyder, he had all the money in the world. He had, no shortage of talent places. And none of it, it doesn't fire on any cylinder. It completely fails. Jen, you might want to talk about Reminiscence.
Oh my God. All right. That was an absolute talent bomb. You've got Hugh Jackman, you've got Rebecca Ferguson, you've got a lot of money and actually an interesting premise. And Tandy Newton. Sorry, forgot about her. It really could have been so cool. And instead it was so trash. It absolutely fumbled all of that. And I could go on for a while, but it was not good. It was bad, and I was upset about it.
But our winner in this category, and I'll let Paul announce it, our winner in this category is one that fits the description that I just gave. I think it had every opportunity. It had probably the biggest budget of any of the movies that we're talking about. I'd be willing to bet.
Probably,
maybe Army of the Dead was probably close. But maybe the biggest budget, had several...
The hottest director.
Mega stars, a hot director, the biggest studio backing it.
It's Eternals.
Eternals.
The worst.
Why for you?
All those reasons. Expectations were, my expectations were not high. But when you have a director coming off of winning the Academy Award for Best Director, and then put out a movie like this, I watched it just a few weeks ago. Now I don't remember any of it. It's the worst parts of Marvel, it's the worst parts of DC put together, and
it's far too many characters. Almost none of them are. Almost all of them are interchangeable. Very few of them are interesting in any kind of way.
Pointless politics shoved into it.
Yeah,
and it's just
weird politics too, like bad arguments. Like we talked about this in the show on this, but they decide that humans are irredeemable because of the Spanish conquistadors and because of Hiroshima. We're skipping over the concentration camps. We're skipping over the Aztecs themselves, for that matter, which is weird.
Yeah,
you might look at the Aztecs and say this is a horrifying civilization, but instead we look at the 200 or so conquistadors who showed up, or
the Babylons. Babylonians.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
No, these are all. We ignore all those.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's everything about Disney right now and modern Marvel movies that I think is just completely off the rails.
Yep, it's bad. Nothing. It's just bad.
All right, final category: Best Picture of the Year for us.
Can we just name it Fat Man?
We just name it Fat Man. Yeah, look, I'll be honest. This is a smaller category, a shorter list than we've had in many other categories. And
so we are very discerning.
We are very discerning. There are a lot of movies, that come out. One of the things for me with Best Picture, I think a lot of times we look at these things and think about like what you would call Oscar bait and things like that.
Yeah.
I'm not particularly interested in that. I would like to talk about movies that people actually watch and care about, and it's not just the Nomadlands and things like that, which fine film, but
nobody watched it.
Nobody really saw it. So our movies on this list are Quiet Place 2, which we've already talked about a little bit. Stillwater, also already talked about. Dune, which Paul will hate me for. And Last Night in Soho, which we just very recently did a podcast episode on. Without further ado, I'm just going to jump right in because we talked about all the other movies. Last Night in Soho takes the win for us. Woo! I agree. I'll talk about it for a minute. Look, I've said many times, Edgar Wright's one of my all-time favorite filmmakers. Last Night in Soho, and I said this in our podcast about it, it's everything that Edgar Wright has done over the years that builds up his repertoire of just technical capabilities as a filmmaker, and then uses them in a way that is mature and interesting and really just drives to the core of a weird, surreal, in some ways horrific story that I can only sort of best compare to like an Alfred Hitchcock movie. And I loved it. I thought the performances were great. I thought the filmmaking was spectacular. And it for me, that's the winner. Paul, your final thoughts on Last Night in Soho?
It was a great movie. It was one that I was not expecting to like as much as I did. Like I said on the podcast, I'm not a huge horror fan, but this was just pitch perfect. I had some minor, like I said in the podcast, some minor issues with the second act, but like the performances are great. The story is different. It's new, and it flips your expectations in a way that I haven't had my expectations subverted. In a really good way. In the best way that you could do it. I mean, it's actually doing it.
Yeah.
It's not just the surface level talk that we hear all the time in Hollywood about, we're doing this. Okay. No, they actually did it.